Hello, I'm back again. So, this segment is about marriage and the abuses that can happen in marriage or any form of relationship. Now, when I was very young, my first marriage, let's just say, was not the best. Um, my husband at the time, I was barely in my early 20s, and how abuse works in most relationships concerning possible marriage or common law status is that the abuser will be all nicey during the dating and the honeymoon phase. You'll get gifts, you'll get compliments, you'll get everything. But once the dust settles, the abuser learns to relax around you. He thinks that you won't tell anyone, that you're not going anywhere. So he gets settled in his ways. Then his attitude changes towards you. First, the mental abuse, such as manipulation, lying, um, making fun of you in front of your friends. Um, uh, they can also go as far as segregating you from your family or your friends, your supports, anything that you get help from or that you feel protected with, that you trust. That's the abuser's way of getting you even more to himself so that he can relax even more. Because once all your protection and your resources are gone, he takes advantage of that. He looks for your weakness and he preys on that. In my first marriage, that's pretty much how it happened. He was really nice, always the flowers, always the gifts, always the promises, the everything that most relationships come with. Only it's overdone. He learns to relax with you a bit, and as time goes on and things get more serious, he changes his tactics. He starts to go after mental and emotional parts of you for which you might be weak. I was young and naive. I was barely 19 when I married him. I was 23 when I divorced him. He started to settle in his ways, and the mental abuse started with teasing me, but in a way of doing it in front of people. We started to move in together, and he started calling me down, like calling me lazy or stupid and all that. Sometimes he'd do it in front of people. And then a few months later, because I was not exactly the greatest cook, he started throwing the food all over the place. And I was turned into his slave. And yes, there was sexual abuse in it. A lot of the times he would say that's not what he wanted, and he would never state what he would want. If the place was not to his expectations, he would yell at me, he would scream at me. And then the physical abuse started. Not even a year into our marriage. He would slap me. There was times that he would block me into a corner. And there was one time that I remember holding a knife. It was a small paring knife. And he tried to threaten me and whatever else. There was times that he even threatened my life. By this time, he started coming after me with sharp objects. There were times that he took out the pellet gun. Thank God he was a bad aim, because he would actually shoot it at me. This continued for near 3 years, off and on. I left him at least once during our marriage, and yes, manipulators will coerce you back into the situation for which you didn't want to be in. They would be good for a while, and then next thing you know, within a few months, they'd settle down and it'd be back to the same old thing. Anyway, as I was saying, I remember it plain as day. I was holding a paring knife, and he had me in a corner, and he said, "Go ahead, hurt me, whatever." And the guy was drunk and stoned off of whatever he was doing during the day. And the knife hit my leg, and I have an inch-long gash scar on my leg because of it. It wasn't that deep, but still, it's still there. He would get an animal and he would beat it, like he tried to beat me many times. I didn't tell anyone because I didn't know who to turn to. All of his friends were alcoholics or drug addicts. And Tara was only heavily dosed on pot because that was the only escape. At that age, I was starting to turn into an alcoholic. I was drinking really heavy. I don't think there was a day that I didn't have a drink in my hand or a joint. But this guy was hooked on coke. And we all know what those kind of drugs will do to a person. Because when they're high, they don't know what they're doing. The abuse, whether he was sober or not, was still there. It was just amplified if he was high. During this time, I had to deal with being his slave and deal with him yelling at me all the time, constantly putting me down, putting my family down. Finally, I had enough, and I left the town I was in and hopped the red eye straight out to Alberta. When I came to Alberta, I received a lot of help to become the woman I am. High self-esteem, but I still have social anxiety because of history. My second marriage, my husband was 20 years my senior, and his choice was whiskey. Now, sure, again, with the nicey gifts, whatever, promises, and not even a year into our marriage, he started drinking heavily. There were times that he would go pee in the closet or pee on my bed, a very expensive one at that. And I would tell him, "Look what you're doing. You're peeing in the closet. You're peeing on my bed." And the guys called me a stupid city slicker, but yet I'm from a town of 4,000 people or less. These days it'd be less. Needless to say, he would also call me delusional, inept. And this guy is like from Boise, Idaho. So to give you an idea, he was an American that had dual citizenship, that thought that Canada's laws were backwards. Needless to say, my second marriage got me off of Aish because he made too much. And I had to leave him. And for 6 months I was homeless because of him, because I had no support. But yet I also had a job waiting for me in Edmonton. And I came to Edmonton and started taking care of a kid in my home for 3 years, or near 3 years, with FASD. And that's when things started to get better. And that's when I also met the man I'm with today. And I have to say, if it weren't for him and all those that are in my life that I consider as friends, support, I would be a different woman. And since today is Gratitude Day, I'm forever thankful that they're in my lives, my life, because sometimes the best support is those that are around you that can support you. Now, I can't say that I'm the easiest person to be with because of history, because of life, because of having a neurological cognitive disability. I have to say that when the anxiety creeps out, or when he's upset with me, I get scared and I lash out at him, and I can't say that it's fair to him, because it's not. He's not the one that caused that fear to happen or that outburst to happen in me. And I wish I could just put it away. And, honey, maybe one day you'll hear this and know that I thank every day that you're with me. And I know sometimes I'm not fair to you. I know I'm not the easiest person to be with. But know that I love you. And nothing will change that. I ain't going anywhere. But I also wish you would realize that maybe sometimes, because of history, that the fear will always be there. And sometimes I don't know how to handle it. You can't just get over trauma. You have a pack of your own trauma, honey. And anyone who's been through trauma in their younger years understands that no matter how much therapy or how much help you get, you never just get over it. You just learn to cope with it. I love you so much. Okay. By the way, those that are in abusive marriages, learn to recognize what you're in, even if you have cognitive issues. That yelling, that screaming, that name calling, that's not normal. And you should get away and seek help. Sometimes leaving is the best answer, because you can't change people, no matter which way you look at it. I thought I could change the 2 husbands that I was with. A person has to be willing to change, but you can't change them. They are who they are. You are who you are. Take that into account. And know that what you're in is not normal. And it should never be allowed. No one should be allowed to put you down or to make you feel less. No one should use your disability against you. No one should put you in a place where you feel that you deserve less, because you don't. And moreover, realize that if an abuser separates you from your family and your friends, and calls your friends and your family down, that's abuse. Get away from it. Run. Because 9 times out of 10, if it's just verbal or mental abuse. And they make sure that all your supports and all your family is gone by taking you out of it, that abuse will become worse. You'll become their slave. You'll become their sex toy. You'll become their thing. And no one should have to go through abuse. No one should have to experience it. Know what abuse looks like when you see it. Start looking up things before it's too late. Because once he starts hitting you, the longer you stay in an abusive marriage or relationship, the harder it is for you to get out, and the worse it gets. And a lot of the time, you won't recognize it, especially if you have issues in knowing how to read people or knowing what is normal and what isn't. And moreover, be kind to yourself. Because you deserve all that is out there that everyone else takes advantage of or has. No one deserves to be hit. No one deserves to be verbally or mentally assaulted. And when your family tells you, or your friends tell you, that you're going through abuse or you're being abused, listen to them. Because chances are, if your friends and family are honest with you, they will tell you that what is happening to you is not normal. And that you should get out. And I'm going to tell you this, that if you're a friend of mine or a family, I will do whatever it takes to say, hey, look, buddy, I know you don't want to leave this guy because you think you love him and all, but, or her, because guys go through abuse too. Just because you're in love with them, abuse is not love, no matter what shape or form it takes. Because quite often, the abuser, once they're done abusing you, will manipulate you by becoming very nice. And quite often, the abuser, when it comes to those that you know, like family and friends, they're over the top nice. But what happens behind the closed door once they're gone? Is, to say the least. Quite often abusers don't realize that friends and family can see through the nice, because what happens next is that the wife or the partner is suddenly quiet because the abuser's talking for them and not letting them talk, not letting them be themselves. But when the friend is able to take that friend away from the abuser, that friend is allowed to breathe and be themselves. And suddenly you see a night and day effect with the one being abused. Such as the case happened to me many times. And I can tell you this. For those that have friends that you think is in an abusive relationship, be open and honest of what you see. Because it is the friends that pay attention, the family that pays attention, that tells that person, I am here for you in your corner, even if you choose to stay with this guy. Just remember, the second you want out, I'll be here with a moving van. Because I'm going to tell you every day how I feel about your relationship, or about this, or that, or the other. But you tell them in private. Because telling the abuser how you feel is not going to change things. As a matter of fact, it might get worse. But the more often you tell that friend that they're being abused, the more that friend will listen to you. And the second that they are ready to leave, you be ready, because it could be at the drop of a hat. You take that friend and you put them in a safe place where the abuser cannot find them, cannot contact them, even if the abuser knows your number. And then you contact that friend's family or closest relative. And that relative steps in and makes sure that that person is safe. I tell you, I'm one of those friends that would sooner lose a friendship and know that my friend is safe than to watch a friend be abused. I will do whatever it takes to take a friend that is disabled out of a bad situation, even if it means losing them. Maybe in time they might come back to you and say, I'm sorry, and realize that you were only trying to protect them. I never want to see any of my friends go through that. Thanks for listening. And those that are friends of the abused, look up the signs for being abused and learn the signals. Because this could be someone close to you. Look for the signs. Look for the truth. And pay attention to your friends and how things change when they're with their partners or with the one they love and when they're with you. The signals are there. You just have to know how to find them.